Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us for Women in 911 Leading with Passion and Compassion. My name is Sandy Dyer from the DataMark team, and I'll be moderating today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to let everyone know that we are recording this webinar and all attendees have been muted for quality assurance purposes, and that a video will be provided for viewing at a later time. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A and or the chat associated to the platform, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. I'd like to introduce our presenter, Chandy Ghosh, from today's session. I'm sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Ms. Ghosh is the Chief Operating Officer and GM at Intelliquent's 911 Emergency Services Division, which implements products and services for public safety. Prior to joining Intelliquent, Chandy was Executive Vice President at Intrado and VP at Lumen. Chandy is the chair of the National Emergency Number Association. Most of you know that as NENA. Women in 911, and is passionate about mentoring women and minorities and serves as a role model for the next generation of technology women leaders. Chandy's accomplishments and community focus have been recognized in various awards here in the US in 2021 Top 50 Most Powerful Women in Technology. Globally in 2020, the Power 100 Global Men and Women in Career Telecom. From a state level, the 2020 Top 25 Most Powerful Women of Colorado. And again, 2 more times globally, 2019, Best Women in Technology and Wholesale Telecommunications, and Top 20 Women to Watch in Technology and Telecommunications, both out of the UK. Please join me in welcoming Chandy Ghosh. Chandy, I can't wait to hear your presentation.
Thanks a lot for that introduction, Sandy. So let's get started. This is the Women in 911 Leading with Passion and Compassion, and I'm Chandy out here in beautiful but snowy Boulder, Colorado. So let's get started. We'll begin with what is leadership? And of course, who doesn't like a little Dilbert on the side, right? So enjoy that cartoon. I'm gonna get a little serious here. So what I'd like to start off with is just close your eyes. And when I say the word leader, who is the first person who comes to mind? I'll give you a second. Okay, open your eyes. So let me share with you my perception of leadership and how it's changed over the years. So my background has been, as an immigrant in the US, working really hard, focused on my career, and have been very fortunate to have progressed my career fairly rapidly. And I was sent by each one of my previous companies to various leadership programs, including the Harvard Leadership Development Program, the Center for Creative Leadership. I don't know how many of you have heard about that, but that is an international program that actually has executives from all over the world come in and share stories and exchange leadership stories and how within the various cultures, how things are dealt with, etc. So it was a fantastic program. And of course, anytime you attend all these leadership programs, you're given all these books to read, and every one of those books, kind of molds you into thinking of how you want to grow your career and how to grow certain characteristics, skill sets, etc. So that's what I was like totally focused on, right? And then after that, as I was going through all that, so let's talk about all the different leadership qualities that I was gathering from all these books and this education, right? So you have to be authentic, right? All of us know that you have to be authentic. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable. You have to show what your true feelings are. You have to be inspiring. People have to look up to you. You have to be an influencer. People want to do what you're doing. Trustworthy for sure, right? Courageous. You have to be a team player. integrity, we know that for sure. You have to be a good communicator. You have to empower your folks. You have to be a visionary. Gratitude for what you get and what you give. Awareness. Respect. You have to get the respect of your teams. Empathy. Now, one of the biggest things I've learned about leadership over the years, a lot of the definitions are also changing, right? In the past, there are 3 words, especially here, you'll see that are very, recent over the last few years. They've become key vocabulary words in the framework of leadership, and I'll speak about those. Empathy is one of them for sure. Honesty has always been one. Accountability, transparency, flexibility, adaptable, and inclusive is the other new one, right? You want to make sure you're always being inclusive, patient. You have to be a mentor, growth mindset. And of course, value driven. So the bottom line is, these are all the different qualities that I've been kind of gathering and from all these books, and then adding to it all the new ones, like I said, empathy, inclusivity, diversity, all these new terminology that's being added to the vocabulary of leadership. So, but then if you really look at this and you think about it and you go, oh my God, for one person to have all these characteristics, show me that one person and I'll show you God, right? So at that point, I basically said, I want to step back a little bit here with this team and say, is this truly what I'm trying to become? Or is there something here that's a little different? And then I'll share a personal experience of mine that changed a lot of my mindset and opened my eyes. It kind of reset my perceptions. So my son was 18 years old and he was getting ready to leave for college on the West Coast. And so he would play basketball. He was playing basketball at the state level and tennis. And so very athletic and good student. So when he left for the West Coast, got into a good school, my whole focus was study hard, education is important, and go do well and all that, right? So he goes there and very excitedly, after a couple of weeks, he said he and his best friend are starting a basketball coaching program by the beach, and that he's going to be spending some time out there in addition to his education. And I was very taken aback. I tried to dissuade him and said, you need to focus on your studies. It's going to be tough. You've got a lot of smart kids in that college. You're going to have, it's going to be difficult. You don't spend all this time on a highway in Los Angeles trying to get to your stadium and spend time coaching and then coming back. Anybody who's lived in LA traffic knows, what a nightmare that is. And so I tried to dissuade him, but he was steadfast in his belief. So I was like, okay, I didn't, I had to live with it. And then fast forward a couple of years, and I wanted to share this with you, which came as a shock, like literally a ton of bricks at me, which totally opened my eyes. On the left, you see, that's my son with all his, this is when he was 18, with all these little kids he was coaching and a whole lot of elementary school students, right? Then he stayed with them right through, as you can see at the bottom here, these are the same kids, middle school students, and now think of this as multiple batches of kids, right? This was his first batch. They were middle school students, and then they became high school students, and they've graduated, now they've graduated. And so basically, this is the message that the manager of this elementary school class, the manager posted this specific comment saying, thank you, you've made such a great impression as one of their first coaches and are continuing to be a great role model. She was one of the mothers. And I mean, she is one of the mothers. And then on the right-hand side, what you see is, I miss you. I loved having you as a coach. I love you. Original squad. I'm going to miss you. Good luck. greatest coach of all time. I'm going to miss you. And I'm reading all this and I'm thinking, oh my God, he wasn't just out there to make a quick buck. He literally was their leader. He was their leader. So it's not about the size of the team. You know, it's not the size of the team. It's not the title that you have. So then my question is, redefining a leader, right? What does it mean to be a leader? Are you influencing or inspiring anyone? Are you authentic? Do you exhibit integrity? Do you look to serve, give back, and demonstrate empathy? To me, these were the three big new characteristics that I believe a true leader needs to demonstrate. And then, if you think about it, who are the people who embody this, right? First responders, 911 dispatchers, and of course, this includes geospatial first responders and women in GIS, and anybody who touches 911. To me, it's such a big part of our lives. And frontline workers in a pandemic, a parent, a teacher, a coach, which is exactly what my son Neil was, right? So this is more of what I believe is the personification of leadership. So that kind of changed my perceptions and my way of thinking. So now let me get to a little more of the meat of this specific presentation as to women in 911, how it was born, and why it was born, right? So for those of you who don't know what Women in 911 is, it's basically a NENA alliance, and it is a partnership built off a partnership of public and private sector companies. So let me pause there for a little bit and share the background of WIN and how it started. So about, for several years, I had been attending NENA, National NENA, and several NENA conferences, APCO conferences, etc. And because I'm in technology products for 911, I would always attend the technology tracks. And of course, as most of us know who have attended any of these conferences, that there is the leadership track, there's the PSAP track, there's several different tracks that's going on, right? So one day I noticed there was this huge hall, and it was full of people, and there was a lot of excited conversation. And I figured, you know what, I'm not going to go into my leadership track. I'm going to go ahead and attend this other session and what's going on there. And there are lots of these 911 leaders that you know were in that session. So I said, let me go see check it out. I walked into it. I was fascinated. There were all these, this conversation about the challenges each of the different PSAPs were having, from a personnel, the fact that, they were always underhanded, shorthanded, how do you support each other? And what I absolutely loved was how each one of the PSAPs were providing solutions to the other PSAPs, and how it was just experiences being shared, and a very collaborative effort out there, and everybody was really helping each other. And it was like a 60-minute session, and I felt so invigorated at the end of it. I went and talked to a couple of the people afterwards, and I asked the question to all of them, saying, so once you're done with this conference, what resources do you have when you have these challenges, outside, again, when you're back at your PSAP? Who do you pick up the phone and call? Who do you, brainstorm with? This was just such a fabulous session. Do you have any resources like that in 911? And pretty much I came out empty. Almost everybody said no. Typically, we would wait for the next, next conference, or to share again these challenges, or we work within our own teams, etc. And so that aha moment was back that, kind of flashed in my brain about, this is something that we could offer as a resource, bring all these centers across the country, across the US and Canada, and, have this resource where people could utilize each other to, in any challenges they were facing. So I went and pitched this idea to NENA. And the first person was Dan Henry, and he was just very supportive and said, what about, we have a brand new NENA president coming in, Monica Million, and why don't you get with her? She is always about all these empowering concepts. And so I'm sure she'd love this idea. And remember, at the back of my mind, the other staff that had been hearing about, incessantly was that 911 dispatchers have, 20% of them suffer PTSD. So here was an opportunity for people to really, collaborate. So fortunately, Monica lives in Colorado too. So I reached out to her and we went out to lunch. Over that one hour, we basically couldn't stop talking, exchanging messages back and forth. Maybe we can offer this, maybe we can do this. How about this? And it was just a brainstorming session. And we came out like, this has to happen. So we took it back and, pitched our mission, vision, and goals to NENA. And they were, very supportive, and WIN was born. So that is the birth of WIN. So now let's get started with, what is WIN and how you can make the most of it and benefit from these, and especially take the message out into the industry to all the PSAPs that you support, all the different 911 authorities that you support. So let's move on to the next slide. So what is WIN? WIN is basically, our mission is to advance women in 911 through leadership development, education, networking, and mentoring opportunities at all levels of their careers. So what is our vision? We want to be the premier resource for women in 911, empowering them to reach their full potential. And our objectives: to promote achievements of women in 911. How many of you have seen Hidden Figures, right? We don't want accomplishments to be, under the rug somewhere. We want it to be screaming it out from the mountaintops, rooftops. We want to develop networks to harness the power of our community. I mean, think about it. Together, we are much stronger. And then build confidence, knowledge, and leadership skills of folks. Drive opportunities for diversity in 911. Provide mentorship and training capabilities. Now, this is a big one, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And then share experiences and insights for growth and development for anybody who touches 911. Moving on. So how does this work? Membership, events. So membership, basically, we're open to all female and male allies who are members of NENA. No additional cost. And basically, sponsors fund some of the events. There's no money required as such from individuals. Events, our events are even open to non-NENA members. There are certain teams, etc., that can't afford NENA fees, where these events are available to non-NENA members, no cost. We have lots of face-to-face events, whether it's at National NENA, Goes to Washington, SBP, and then of course all the state conferences. And so our committee, we started off much smaller, but our committee today is comprised of some of the biggest names in the 911 industry. We've picked a handful of really strong leaders to make sure we can accomplish this vision, those that can help us navigate these paths. And so Monica, as you know, Monica and I are co-chairs of WIN. And we have a lot of the key leaders and companies, Intaro, Motorola, Datamark, and other mission critical partners, Wonder Woman, etc., and several of the 911 authorities, as you can see, who are members, including the NENA team of Chris Nussman, etc. So, and Anna Marie Bett, etc. So, strong people who are going to help us set direction and move. We meet on a regular basis. So now let me come up with WIN. I'm trying to. So let me come up. So WIN accomplishments 2019 to 2020. So what exactly did we accomplish? So let me start with the first item, which is our first WIN kickoff event at National NENA. This is the exact moment that Monica and I realized that we had something here on our hands, because this event was our first kickoff and it far exceeded our expectations. So we launched, it was at the Florida NENA, and I basically, in my mind, I was thinking that if we had 100 attendees, it would be a huge success. We had rented or reserved this place in a bar, the entire top floor that we set aside for having this conversation on WIN. And as the event started, we had people, handing out cards and a little brochure on what WIN was, and how we wanted them to participate and what kind of benefits we would offer, etc., and how we could grow WIN. Well, people started coming in. We started handing out all the stuff, and at that time we were just about 4 or 5 people who were involved with WIN, a couple of volunteers, and Monica and myself, and a couple of people. And so we basically handed out those cards, etc., and people were coming, and soon there was a huge line outside, and literally at 100 people, because of the fire hazards, we had to close the doors and turn away people. We turned so many people away, it broke my heart. But we realized what an impact this was going to be, that people wanted this this kind of a resource. So what have we done since then? I mean, so in that, the other part of it at that National WIN, we handed out all these cards to these women, and we asked everybody, what is it that you want out of this? We want to offer you something that's valuable and of benefit to you. And what is it that you truly would like to see? So every one of them gave us back their biggest challenge and what they want out of WIN. And we came out with a list of about 150 things that, individual challenges, PSAP challenges, etc., that they wanted solutions of, and they wanted webinars. They wanted leaders from the 911 industry to brainstorm those topics and come up with, ways, skills, and, like best practices, etc. So we immediately after that started planning all these webinars. Look, I'm not going to walk through each one of these, but take a look at these webinars and the kind of people who have been presenting them. The first one being, like Christy Williams and Monica, Karima Holmes and Mary Boyd, Lori Anderson and Halcyon, etc. So we basically have targeted each one of these webinars to address a lot of those topics that came out of that initial kickoff. Currently, just as I want to show on the left, we have about 750 members and growing rapidly. So I would encourage each and every one of you, if any of you are not a member of WIN, please, and I'll get to how you can become a member. And then, of course, added accomplishments. We have scholarships. So based on our funding from our sponsors, we offer different capabilities. So one of them was a WIN scholarship. We awarded it to Megan Hamilton and gave her a free ticket to goes to Washington, and she wrote a blog on our WIN website. If you go to our WIN website, you'll see there's a blog by her, and she said this totally changed her life, because her confidence suddenly, from being very inward focused, she suddenly was exposed to all this, and totally her confidence went to the next level, and how this has changed her. This is exactly what we're trying to accomplish. We've had lots of networking events. So here, if you're sitting in your little PSAP, in your little world, the best way to be able to meet with all these leaders in the 911 industry that you hear of and read about in all these articles and these conferences, come to our networking events. We have Win with Win. We had Halloween tips and treats. We had a Christmas event. We have lots of podcasts and blogs. And, we are all sharing our stories and our experiences, and, to help people grow. And then came our biggest moment, which is one of our biggest offerings, our mentoring platform. WIN has a women mentoring women platform, which we would like every person who touches 911 to take advantage of. These the mentors are literally all the industry names, and if you want your career, especially those who are newer to 911, if you want somebody to mentor you along your career journey, there is nothing like this. This will help you, and you can pick whether you want to be somebody from the private sector or the public sector. You can pick basically on the platform. It's a NENA platform. You would create your profile, become a mentor or a mentee, and under area of interest, you would pick woman in 911. And then we behind the scenes will match you to who, based on your description, when you create your profile as to what you're looking for, will match you with somebody who can help you with your career. So that's one of the key, key offerings we have that we think is of very high value that I'd like people to take advantage of. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about some of our upcoming webinars. Let me move this out a little bit. Okay, so we had this first webinar this year, and it was called 8 Tips for Surviving Your First Year in 911. And as we were watching it, we were seeing all these chats coming in, and we always look at all those chats to see what is going on, what are people talking about, why, how can we help, right? This was one of the feedback that completely blew me away, and we've shared it with all our folks as to this is the kind of impact we hope to have. Thank you. This is just what I needed to hear today. I have had to have a thick skin from hazing for the last 2.5 years. Yes, 2.5 years. And it has finally pierced my being lately. This has caused me to be angry, anxious, and not my positive self. After the seminar, I can feel myself coming back down to who I am as a person. So this is what we're trying to do, is this PTSD challenge, this the stress level in a lot of the work that 911 dispatchers do. Anyone who's working in 911 does, systems, if there's an outage, everything, it's stressful because we want to do the best job for citizen safety. And so how do we, if you're feeling totally stressed like this individual here, how do you calm down? How do you bring yourself back down to, yes, you matter. Yes, you're of value. Yes, you will, you can see yourself with, providing value, and that it's not a waste, and that you're not absolutely stressed out and ready to give up. That's our biggest message. We have a lot of other webinars, upcoming webinars, one in June. Every quarter we have one, and we always look into what is a topic that people want to hear about. So the next one is about building your confidence. Your voice, your individual voices matter. So please come join us, Again, of course, we are continuing with our scholarship program. We have some fantastic networking sessions. We just had our Valentine's Day one, where we talked about what we love about 911. And then, of course, the telecommuter week. We have one communicator week. We have this session coming up, our networking session on Thursday. So if you guys have time, join us on Thursday. We get a glass of wine. Everybody come join us, and we have a really fun time talking about some experience about telecommunicator week. And so we'd love to see you. Sign up. And I'm sure you'll start seeing some NENA newsletters that will remind you of it. And we send out a lot of social media on this. Again, you will see a bunch of WIN podcasts, blogs. And I want to talk about two other things here. One of them is Monica and I are very focused on partnerships and international alliances. So when we started having such a big response to WIN, one of the things that we got a call from the International Alliance of Emergency Dispatch, which is, which supports 70 member countries. So as you know, WIN itself is focused on the US and Canada. And we have now been invited to the Navigator conference in July in Vegas to speak about WIN and how we can take this global, right? So we want to start offering this all over the world. I mean, if any woman in any part of the world can benefit, so be it. That's all we care about. So that's our next big step. The other one, which was really interesting, was Women in Standards, which is a national body which talks about standards in all different areas. They basically reached out to us, and we talked to them, and we talked about the challenges of how there are the percentage of women on standards bodies. And I want to talk a little bit about the standards and best practices. What happened in the standards and best practices conference that we had at NENA. So last year at Austin, we had standards and best practices just before COVID hit. So this was actually my last, I think, in-person event. And it was, as usual, as SBP is, a fantastic conference. And we had a WIN event one of the evenings, very well attended. The hall was absolutely packed. And what was interesting during the day at all these standards bodies, all the panels, the standards bodies and all panels were primarily men. I would say almost 95% at least men. And so at this WIN session, the whole focus of the conversation, the topic for each WIN session, we typically have a topic that we want to address. And the topic was women in standards. 911 all depends on everyone's inputs, right? I mean, look at this group of people, right? Experienced in GIS, women in GIS, geospatial expertise. I want to see a lot of some of you who are, brilliant in what you do on those standards bodies. And it's not just about technical expertise. A lot of these standards bodies look for people who are really well organized, who can do the project management of these bodies, who can, make sure that, there's very well-defined, milestones and people are driving towards deliverables, etc. So it's not just, a theoretical piece of work. So there's a lot of requirements on these standards bodies. So at this WIN session, what was very interesting was we split it out into tables. I think we had about six tables. And we had a coordinator on each of the 6 tables. Monica and I kind of led it on the side. And basically what we did was we asked each of the 6 tables, we split it out into, a group of women who would talk about why were they interested in standards bodies? Did they have something to contribute? Were they confident about their own skills and knowledge? And would it be something that they would be interested in? And if so, why were they not on a standards body? What was holding them back? So we had all these 6 tables, and they all had got about 20 minutes to discuss it amongst themselves. And then at the end of the session, we had each of the tables, a speaker talk about what their expertise was specifically, and whether they wanted to be part of a standards body, and what was that was holding them back. And each of them, which kind of was again a big aha moment, every one of them to a T had the same response. They were intimidated by some of these very sharp men on these standards bodies who would take on that conversation, and they knew their stuff for sure. Not to say that the people in our conference, in our WIN session, did not have their information, but they were intimidated to have that conversation. So then we focused the rest of our WIN session on what do we need to change this. So basically, women, typically, one of the biggest things that women like is that feeling of belonging, the welcoming views, being inclusive. How do we include everybody, right? And how do we facilitate to make sure everyone's included? So we went back and we said, okay, here's what we need to do. We need if you are interested in a standards body, let us know. We will put you on the standards body, assign you a mentor who will make sure you're being included, and you'll be in the whole inclusive aspect, and feel welcome on those standards bodies, right? And so that was one of the biggest aha moments. And so again, I encourage you to join these standards bodies. It'll not only help you with your confidence, it will help the 911 industry with your knowledge. And everybody brings a different perspective, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so and I'm kind of running out of, it's almost 10:40. So let's talk about WIN and what is our goal. What's our goal? Our goal basically is to get every woman in 911 to become a member and to avail of our free services. It's just added value, and it's not any money. It's a little bit of your time to improve yourself. You're worth it. Take that time. Just so what can I ask of you? What can we ask of you from WIN? We want you to spread awareness within your organizations, to get your employees. We want everybody to sign up for WIN. Anybody who has anything to do with 911, every woman out there. We want you to invite WIN to your conferences, just like this one, so that we can spread the word. State chapters, you're working with each of the different PSAP jurisdictions, each of the different 911 authorities and jurisdictions. Spread the word among the state chapters. We already have the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as well as the state of Arizona who've reached out to us, and now Colorado. And we are driving this WIN membership and the WIN program, because very often, for example, in the state of Massachusetts, I'm working with Ann Camaro, and she wants to have her own Massachusetts mini WIN group where they have their own internal challenges and support system and resources that they want to create. That's so perfect. We'll offer them all our basic foundational infrastructure, and they can utilize it for their own needs. And that's what we're trying to do. And then the last one, of course, is, we have accomplished so much in the past 2 years with zero funding, absolutely zero funding. It's just nothing but our passion, right? And there's sometimes we know when we're out at some of the conferences, we would love some support from each of the different, from the different private sector companies. And so any kind of monetary or non-monetary, volunteer support, etc., it's always welcome. Because again, like I said, all our people, including the entire committee, is doing this out of passion and to give back. So if you have, so this basically, women, and we basically all hashtag women in 911 is the big hashtag. Anytime, if you like this conference, please, if you like what you're hearing here and you want people to join, please tweet with hashtag women in 911. If you have any questions, please email us at win@nena.org. And of course, the most important thing, become a member. So go to the NENA website, and then you just have to click on women. You go to memberships, Women in 911. And then when you get to the WIN page, it'll say, are you a member? If you read the body, you'll see, are you a member? It's highlighted there, and click on that and say join. There'll be a button on the top on the next page, and you can join, right? So please, please join us. And one of the thoughts I'll leave you with here is, one of my favorite sayings, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. So let's not stop giving. And it's really important. So last thing I'd like to leave you with is thank you to Sandy for setting this session up. We've had other people who really helped us a lot. Lynn Hauserman for setting up WIN session at yesterday's NG911 Institute honor session. I don't know how many of you saw that. And then, of course, this National NENA, if any of you are at National NENA, please, please come join us. We have a fabulous session at National NENA in Columbus, Ohio. And we have a social immediately after the session, which you do not want to miss. And Intrado and Mary Boyd are sponsoring that. So I sure hope to see each and every one of you at that. And of course, join all our WIN webinars. One's coming up, like I said, very soon, and our happy hour this Thursday. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sandy for Q&A.
Thank you so much for sharing about WIN. I do want to reinforce, folks, so I am a part of NENA's standards and best practices body. I actually am a NENA working group co-chair. I currently have co-chaired 3 working groups. I'll start my 4th at the end of the month. And I am not a subject matter expert. I co-chair because I have organizational skills, and I can manage documents, and I can manage conversations and large groups and all those things that go with it. So it's actually, let me see, the real-time text working group that I co-chaired. So there were 2 sessions at SVP that I was on the panel, but you were right. The majority of the panel presentations were men. There were a splattering of women that were representing our individual work group bodies. But you're right, the majority were men. I would love to see more and more women participating as co-chairs. And a lot of times when you decide that you want to participate in a work group or even want to become a co-chair, you're going to find someone like me who's going to help you with that, who's going to help you figure out how you do all that. How do I do the agendas and the notes, and how do I set up the meetings, and how do I manage the document and the comment periods? And there's a lot of work in it, I'm not going to lie, but it is doable, and you don't have to be the subject matter expert. And I learned so much just being a part of the experience. So like even the new work group that I'm co-chairing is non-conventional means of communicating in E911, and it's trying to take those IoT, those various IoT methodologies that we are already receiving today in E911 and trying to figure out how we navigate them in the PSAP. Now, it's not about the NG perspective. It is about how we're going to navigate them today. Am I a subject matter expert on that? No, but I am co-chairing to help manage.
Love it.
Right. So please don't be afraid of it. Turn to WIN to get the support that you're looking for, because that's what we're here for, is to help you figure that out. Now, I did want to clarify. So a large portion of Next Generation 911 are our geospatial first responders, the GIS professionals. And there is a women in GIS, but I think that folks that the GIS professionals that are going to be supporting NG 911 would probably find some value in the same space. So Women in 911 is open to GIS professionals as well as anyone involved in the public safety community, right?
Absolutely, totally. Okay. Anybody who touches 911.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to clarify. I am new to Win as one of the secretaries, so I'm learning as we go. If I do have any of my Arizona counterparts on the call, at the upcoming Arizona APCO NENA annual conference, we will be having a panel specifically for women in 911. I encourage you to participate in that, either as an attendee, or if you find that you want to mentor, or if you're an active leader in your community, I'd love to see you on our panel as well. Now, I was listening to everything you were saying, Chandy, about leadership. And if there was one book or reference or organization that you would encourage folks to look into as far as leadership, what is it? I mean, because there's so many leadership books out there. I mean, I get tired of trying to sift through them. And I would like to find one that would be.
So, okay, so I'll let me tell you, there are two very different types of leadership books. One is inward focused, which basically says, how do you create your mindset and your behaviors to be a good leader? And I don't know if you can see this, and this is the test of time. It's called the 4 Agreements, and this is one of those, and it's not the very recent book, but it's one of those about what do you have to set within yourself to become, that leader that people will see for you. For example, it says be impeccable with your word. Well, that's one of them, right? Don't take things personally, because one of the things is what others do is a reflection on them. Don't take everything personally and believe that you're bad because something else, somebody else's, so that's one of, it's just calming yourself down to the point that that lady made in that webinar, right? So just to set yourself right. Don't make assumptions about what others are thinking or do based on an action of theirs. Talk it out, etc. And always be your best. So the 4 Agreements is more internally focused, that will basically help you overcome your own personal mindset, your frame of mind, and set you in one of those spaces where you feel like, yes, you mean something, you're of value, even though you've just been through something that's really pushed you down. How do you get over that? I mean, and if you take these 4 values in and keep that in your mind, you won't let somebody else totally trod you. And that is why I like that book. And it's really, like I said, that's the challenge of time. That's one. And then there's this one of the other one is about what do you do, outwardly to go be that leader for your folks, for your teams, for all that. And then there's all these books, of course, Jim Collins, Great by Choice. He basically talks about how, the same circumstance, when you look at whether it's the industry, whether it's the world, a global pandemic, whatever it is, everybody faces these external pressures that are coming, and how you choose to react, which is what Great by Choice is all about, is how you respond to that is what will finally make you sink or swim, right? That basically, like, the discipline and the choices you make based on what you are given which is what will determine whether you're going to be successful or not. So those are kind of things like, so it's 2 different types of ideas. I love both the books, and and more recently though, a lot of new books are coming out, like I said, with what's going on in this world right now over the last 2 years, right? It's about being inclusive. How can you be more inclusive? Look at more diverse viewpoints. Remember, one of the key things I talk about a lot in a lot of my talks is, in the past, what was the one thing from an HR perspective, we always were trained to say in interviews? You want the perfect culture fit. You want to make sure that the new resources you bring in is the perfect culture fit that you have to your current culture. And when I think about that 20, 25 years ago, that culture And when I look at that versus the culture today, which is so much more open and inclusive and diverse, and we want to get everybody's opinions, there are, we want to reflect society. There's, all kinds of people, your target markets, based on your target markets. You want to target your solutions towards your target markets, especially when you're talking consumer products, right? So there's a lot of new books that are coming out, which talk much more about, what are the new characteristics that you want to look at? Empathy. How many books have you read about 20 years ago that talked about empathy? Almost none. It was like, okay,
Correct.
it was
Yeah.
more about your company, what you do, and how do you get to where you want to go. Sort of surround yourself by the best people. That's where it kind of stopped. And there's more to it. And so there's a lot we're still learning. And I love where we are right now, because, all this inclusivity, diversity, and the whole empathy aspect, put yourself in someone else's shoe and see what they need. And, we're all one, and we all have to help each other out.
I agree. A lot more of the leadership books these days are more about those soft skills than those than they've historically had. Thank you so much for sharing the story about your son. I know as a parent, I love when I'm able to learn from my children, and my daughters are wonderful and beautiful, and I learn from them every day. One, that they're a better mom than I ever was. And for sharing the Women in 9-1 Alliance, because I think it's important, and I really want to stress to our GIS professionals that this is inclusive of you as well. So please consider going to the webpage and taking a look at that. If you weren't able, if you find that you have questions afterwards, whether about WIN or leadership or whatever the case might be, and you want to reach out to Chandy, please feel free to do so, and she'll respond to you at a later time. Our next session.
WIN@NENA.org.
No, WIN. Okay, perfect. The WIN@NENA.org. Please join our next session. It's going to start in about 7 minutes. It's implementing statewide NG91 GIS, the Alabama approach. The session is going to feature the state of Alabama's approach to supporting NG91 GIS from the local communities throughout Alabama. Thank you, Chandy. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a wonderful day.